So am I gone? K-Y-T-T-Y. That's my new, what is that, an acronym? It stands for, now this is my own invention, keep your thoughts to yourself. Let's go back to those days when not every thought had to be said. What's wrong with Onie Adams? Episode 117. I'm back. I'm in Big Yellow. It's gonna be a scorcher today. It's gonna be hot. Have I offended anybody yet? Yeah, I have. It'll happen. It happens fast. It sure does. We have gotten soft. We have gotten This is from my soft. Special More Than Loud. What are you allergic to? Nothing! Nothing! Gluten wouldn't take down our generation. This gluten came out of nowhere. Allergic to things like peanuts. You know why? Our parents made us eat peanuts. They made us eat peanuts until we weren't allergic to peanuts. Well, it seems to resonate with this crowd, right? They're clapping. These peanut allergies seem to have come out of nowhere. Our throat started to close up. You know how they opened it up? They shoved more peanuts down it. Did you hear what I said? If our throat started to close up. I'm not allergic to germs. I should. What's this? Shake my hand. Look at that. That's how you shake a hand. I don't care about germs. Listen, I'm starting to really hate people. Yeah, well, I should have just opened with that. What I said was, if our throats when we were kids started to close up, the parents would shove more peanuts down it to open it up. And this is a comment. I mean, you can't make this up. I mean, are people serious? This is from, this is on YouTube, from Angel Worm. Ready? This is under the clip that you just saw. That's an extremely dangerous and irresponsible claim. Peanut allergies can be life-threatening, and intentionally exposing someone with a peanut allergy to peanuts could trigger a severe, potentially fatal allergic reaction. In parentheses, anaphylaxis. This is in response to me saying, shove peanuts down the kid's throat to open the throat up if there's an allergic reaction. My response: thank you for writing a medical disclaimer for my comedy special. I hope this will put an end to people taking medical advice from a comedian. I'm sorry. K-Y-T-T-Y. Keep your thoughts to yourself. Not every thought in your head needs to come out. And understand the source. This is a comedian. I'm just commenting on the proliferation of allergies out of nowhere. Gluten, peanuts, it's all I can hear about. Put them together and what do you got? We got Orny Adams. Episode 117. Here we go. First of all, congratulations to my Boston Celtics. Excuse me, world champions, Boston Celtics. Did it in 5 games against Dallas Mavericks. Probably could have done it in 4, but they didn't want to win in Dallas. Whoever wants to celebrate in Dallas. So, yeah, that's it. Sweet 18 championships. Here's what's remarkable. When I was in high school, we're going to talk a little bit about when I was younger on this podcast. I got to show you this piece of electronics. It's actually older than me. It's remarkable. When I was in high school, the Boston Celtics won 3 times. In 1981, 1984, and 1986. That was with, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Tiny Archibald. Was he there? Danny Ainge, Kevin McHale with the big arms. Can you imagine that? I'm in high school. What do I know of sports? Pretty much nothing. And my Celtics won 3 times. You would think at that rate, I'm going to see 20 more championships in my lifetime. Well, here's what happened. Celtics didn't win again until 2008. They've now won 18 championships. From 1959 to 1966, they won 8 in a row. Then they won 3 when I was in high school with Larry Bird, the greatest. Who wants to argue with me about that? And then in 2008, they won again. That was the 17th. So I remember Sweet 16 when I was in high school. That's a long time ago. And they're only at 18 now. So brace yourself in life. If you think that you're on a pattern or a trajectory or path of winning nonstop, whether in your life or your team, it can end at any time. Yeah, watch what's about to happen with the New England Patriots. In 2008, it was Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo. Larry Bird played from 1979 to 1992. He was the Hick from French Lick, Indiana. So, yeah, fun to watch. It's fun to watch things like the NBA, professional basketball, because there's no chance I was ever going to be a professional athlete. I've been watching this documentary on Netflix about the Tour de France, or the Tour de France, where they bike around for like 20 days. It looks exhausting, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating insight into a world that I know nothing about, that I don't feel competitive with. Don't try and watch comedy with Onie Adams. Oh, it's full of resentment, bitterness, envy, anger. Yeah, but I can enjoy that. And I can enjoy music. Those are the two things. I love music. Thank God. I tried to play the electric guitar when I was younger. In fact, in high school at a recital, I remember I played, what was it? The Rolling Stones. It wasn't Satisfaction. Maybe it was You Can't Always Get What You Want. It was pathetic. I knew at that moment, don't ever pick up a guitar again and play in public. And thank God I'm not one of these guys in my garage or that has a band trying to make it. Still, I mean, I would have... I just hit the mic stand with my glass. Sorry, listeners. This is just my 117th episode. I'm just figuring it out. Yeah, I'm not competitive at all with basketball, bike racing, music. Oh, I can enjoy music. Hate comedy. Hate it. Hate every time I'm watching a movie or somebody else do comedy, or God forbid a commercial where the writers think that they're funny, I'm punching up in my head nonstop. I'm like, they didn't need that extra word, or I change things, or I rewrite things. I don't enjoy it. I've got a mathematical brain for comedy, and music I can just enjoy. Equally critical, but guess what I do? A little something called Big Kitty. I keep my thoughts to myself. I don't really have to say. I'll tell you what I really like, but that's why I'm fascinated by this. One of my friends, Mark Mann. He was on my podcast. He's a guitar virtuoso. He wrote a theme for this podcast he covered. He's played with everybody. Sir Paul McCartney. He's played with Ringo Starr. He's played with Eric Clapton. Did that whole concert for George. And he comes to my shows all the time. In fact, he'll be at my show this Saturday night at the Ice House. But I should say that now. If you want to come see one of my live shows, OnieAdams.com/tour. I'm going to get back to Mark Mann in a second. I'll be at the Ice House June 22nd, next weekend, next Thursday, which if the 22nd, I think the 27th, I'll be back at Jimmy Kimmel Comedy Club in Las Vegas. Two shows one night, Thursday. 2 shows, June 27th. June 28th, 29th, I will be in San Diego at the Mic Drop Comedy. And you can go to OnieAdams.com/tour for tickets. I'm telling you, come see a show. I was at the Comedy Store last night. I was on a show with Patton Oswalt and Eliza Schlesinger and Whitney Cummings and Kevin Nealon. A lot of great comics. If I'm forgetting anybody else, but Dane Cook, I apologize. And it's packed. And the energy, it's so fun. And what I did, so if I go back, let's see, last week, I did the Laugh Factory, I did the Improv, I did a local show called Jam in the Van. Every show was different. Every show, the pacing, the material, how I got in and out of the material. And it's why I'm hesitant to shoot another comedy special. Because as I edit More Than Loud and my Takes the Third, those are the names of the two specials I have up on YouTube. More Than Loud has 5 million plus views. And Takes the Third. And as I edit these clips, I realize how poorly stand-up comedy holds up. It's not like music. You can listen to great music. I was listening to Chuck Berry, great music. But there's another example of not where a live performance doesn't hold up, or the risk of recording and not getting exactly what you want. So I think I talked about in the last podcast, Chuck Berry, My Ding-a-Ling. And I've been trying to find video of this London session of Chuck Berry. It's an album, and he plays it, My Ding-a-Ling, and then he goes into Johnny Be Good, and the crowd is, won't leave. They want more Chuck, and then the promoters are fighting with the audience. Hey, everybody, I'm sure you're going to come back for the Pink Floyd concert. Not Pink Floyd, the Pink Floyd concert. And it's so energetic and beautiful. And I don't think there's video of it. But I did find video of Chuck Berry singing My Ding-a-Ling. And it was probably, I should look at the dates, probably, in fact, if somebody out there wants to do this for me, that video is probably after the London session, Berry Blues, whatever it's called, because he's doing the exact script, but it's not as connected and organic. It's almost as if he's trying to imitate what he achieved in another show that was great and now wants that on video for, perpetuity. It didn't work. And that's the fear of stand-up comedy. And I can tell you, the people that came to my show last night or in the last few days, yeah, you've probably seen my specials, but you'd have to agree that the live experience is much better. The problem is, in order to sell tickets, you have to just keep putting out these specials. As an artist now, the clock ticks a lot faster. Eminem put out a song 2 weeks ago. 48 hours later, we were all bored of it, and we're like, all right, Em, what else you got? What else you got? Great song, great video. Probably took you 2 years to write and produce and do everything, but we're bored. We're bored because there's so much content out there. There's too much. There's too much of everything. And too many opinions about everything. I remember there was a time when there was like your barber would talk a lot. You're like, geez, he has an opinion on everything. But most people just kept to themselves. Why do we feel the need to weigh in? Weigh out. Weigh inside. Keep it inside. Nobody wants to hear your opinion on everything. Even I'm smart enough to realize that. Now, I'm a professional. Let me say that, okay? I'm a pro. I'm very good at this, okay? But I have rules. I tend not to bash individuals. And, why? Why would I ever think that my opinion even matters to that person? That's the other thing. And, of course, with that comment at the beginning, that person completely missed the point that it's a comedy special. When you go to watch live comedy, you must suspend reality, facts. As I always say, never let science get in the way of a laugh. Just enjoy it. Or don't enjoy it. You don't have to enjoy it. And, when I make fun of gluten allergies, I understand there's a lot of people out there that are severely allergic to gluten and peanut butter, but not everybody. And also, very suspicious how this just came out of nowhere. There's, cultural something syndromes. Cultural, I have it in my notes. It is, I'm not going to find it, but cultural bound syndromes, I think it's called, where mania takes over. You know, like the Salem witch trials, where everybody starts to think everybody's a witch. So it's possible that everybody just starts to think that gluten is bad, and I must be allergic to gluten too. That's the essence of that. I can't believe I'm still explaining this. Pathetic. Come see me live. So in the last episode, you know, I never really explained. I was talking about music, and I emailed Mark Mann. I said, hey, I want your expert advice on these videos. And I never really explained what I loved or why that Bruce Springsteen. Remember I said there were two in 19, whatever it was. I should look at, I opened the last episode. This is 116. And I said that in 2013, the band Fun played Carry On at the Grammys. And in the same year, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band played You Never Can Tell in Leipzig, Germany. And what I wanted to know was, because I got caught up in these two videos, when Bruce gets this suggestion, so I guess they take suggestions from the audience for songs, and I guess people write it on a piece of cardboard or whatever they have, and Bruce picks one. And the band starts playing. Now, somehow, he said, we haven't played this since we were teenagers. And yet, the entire band plays it like they've rehearsed it 100 times. How is that possible? Is this magic? Am I at the Comedy and Magic Club? Is Bruce Springsteen pulling one over on me? How do they do it? Now, I know how Bruce knows. In fact, Mark explains that, but I figured that much when the suggestion comes up. But here's what Mark said. In regards to Bruce Springsteen, You Never Can Tell, which was made very popular in the Quentin Tarantino movie, not Kill Bill, what was it? Pulp Fiction. Mark Mann says, and I have his full permission to read this. Yes, the song appears to be a request by a fan, and the band are great musicians. It is an easy song in that it is only 2 chords. How is that possible? And the 1 chord and the 5 chord of any key. So, at the beginning, you see Bruce trying to figure out what key he wants to get into. And the key being decided upon the start helped pick a vocal range for Bruce. The song is one they've all heard before, and most certainly, but once the key is picked, the horn players know what notes fit into the chords, and they listen to the riff that Bruce sang, and they pick it up by ear. The piano player is excellent in doing the style of the song, but these are standard solo riffs over a 1 to 5 or 1 V chord progression, Roman numerals. Oh, great! Thanks, Mark Mann, for telling me Roman numerals after I read it and seem like an idiot on the air. So 1 through 5 chord progression. They made it sound great, and they had a bit of fun, and the real magic is Bruce remembering the words, but you'll see him looking down at a hidden teleprompter with the lyrics. And while the messing around at the beginning was to pick a key, some quick thinking tech off stage got the lyrics ready for him. And I was wondering how they had the key, the guitar with the tune to that key and all that stuff. Impressive sounding, but not hard to play for seasoned musicians. There you go. Mark Mann clearing it up for all the what's wrong with Onie Adams listeners, and of course me. What I think was amazing was, but then afterwards I was listening to the horn players play, and Bruce Springsteen has that double album, the Seeger Sessions. And a lot of the horn sound similar. So I guess exactly what Mark said is the case. Now, I was fascinated by Fun in the last episode. Now, fans did write in, and a lot of people in my Patreon group, love you Patreon people, did point out that Sting left the band and did very well. And so did, you can feel it, Phil Collins. But Peter Gabriel also left that band too. So yeah, there are examples of people leaving the band and doing well, but I must say it's rare. And in this case, I wonder if the fun lead singer, regrets leaving the band, because the other guy is now a big producer, the guitar player, and he's writing songs for Taylor Swiftie and other people. He just won 3 Grammys. I think he won like Producer of the Year, and 3 of his songs won Grammys. I mean, Maron, this guy's done well. Nothing worse than working with somebody and then they're doing better than you. And that's everybody I've ever worked with. So I say never leave the band. Like I was just using as an example, Teen Wolf. So many times I wrote letters in my head to Jeff Davis quitting that show. But I never quit because I knew how much good it was doing for me, even though my ego felt differently. Sometimes you have to take your ego and scrunch it up like a piece of shit and shove it back inside you. And that's why I say don't leave the band. Don't leave the band. Now, some people leave the band, they do very well. But the other guy in Fun left the band and he's very successful. But those guys came together as like a super group, much like Toto. And they were killing it. It's hard, though. Okay, whether you're doing music or comedy or films, whatever art, it is not easy to produce over and over and over. In fact, oftentimes you repeat yourself. And as I listen back to More Than Loud and Takes the Third, and I'm pulling clips and putting them up on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and X and all these places that are going to be obsolete hopefully in 20 years and make this episode sound super dated. I realize that I'm repeating themes, I'm repeating thoughts, references. So how good are we? In fact, when I was at the Comedy Store last night, 2 comedians confessed to me that they're kind of tired of podcasting. They said, how much do we really have to say? And I said, I've been saying that forever. I mean, these guys that do it 5 days a week or multiple podcasts, there just isn't that much to say. Humans aren't supposed to talk for hours a day about themselves or anything. You're not meant to. You're meant to KYTTY. Kitty. Big kitty. Keep your thoughts to yourself. You don't have to say everything. I keep a lot in, believe it or not. Yeah. Not everything has to be said. So I feel like there is fatigue in the comedy podcast community. And it will be interesting to see what happens. Will comedians stop doing podcasts on a regular basis? Is this my chance to leapfrog ahead because there's an opening now? I mean, I find it very hard. I find myself sitting down during the week, reading articles, taking notes, trying to find interesting topics to talk about. Can I make them interesting? You know, like I just read about that when President Biden was out here. One of his Secret Service agents on a night off got mugged. Guy stole his, in Orange County, stole his bag. I don't know if it was a gunpoint, but he got robbed. That's my proud state of California. Holy cow, the Secret Service aren't even safe out here. And then he used his weapon. He shot at the person, I believe, and the person isn't caught. They don't know who the person is. They're looking for leads. They're asking the community for help. I mean, somebody better start the podcast to uncover who held up our Secret Service. The Secret Service aren't safe in Los Angeles. How am I going to be safe? Crime is out of control. So I read articles like that and I think about it. I start to think like, who else wouldn't be safe out here? How can I make this funny? Because you think of like Secret Service, they should be the most proficient in using their guns or self-defense or stopping, a crime. They're the ones that are supposed to jump on the president if he's being shot at. They're supposed to take a bullet. So it's It's strange times. That's all I have to say. All I can do is listen to music, which I can enjoy before every show. I go on YouTube and I watch and listen to videos. And oftentimes, Mark Mann is in the videos I like to watch. He played with ELO too, Electric Light Orchestra, and Jeff Lynne. He was in that video with Prince. This has been seen millions of times. Prince, Tom Petty, Mark Mann, George Harrison's son is in it. And they're playing While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I mean, it's so cool. So it's fun to look at that video and go, hey, I'm friends with that guy. That guy watches me, comes to my shows. I'm watching him. How cool. So fun at the Grammys. That song, Carry On, is such a great song. Puts me in a good mood. You go, this band should be called Fun. Well, the fun ended because they didn't stick together. They all had to do their own projects. And now that lead singer, wish I remember his name. I did last week. His name is Nate Roos, who I guess is doing podcasting now. Hey, Nate, come on my podcast, unless you're sick of podcasting like the comedy community seems to be getting. They've run out of things to talk about. Okay, so Mark says, on Fun, live at the Grammys, it appears to be a live performance. So what fascinated me was this performance was so great, and at the end, rain comes down. They're inside at the Grammy stage, and it starts raining. You can see, like, the lead guitarist, who's now the greatest producer of our times, apparently, is wiping his glasses, and, they're all wet, and their instruments are wet. You can see the rain coming off of the piano, and I'm like, how is this safe electrically? And then how do you play? How do you, as a guitarist, okay, I played in a recital in middle school. I played You Can't Always Get What You Want. Okay, so I know what it's like to play a live performance with a guitar, and it's hard enough, okay, with your sweaty fingers, and then you add the rain or the moisture. I couldn't do it. He says it appears to be a live performance, perhaps reinforced with some pre-record. There are a number of signs for not being all pre-recorded or a mimed performance, including vocals. There were vocals a bit out of tune in places, and the drums sounded exactly like what you are seeing being played. So he's saying that if it was pre-recorded, he wouldn't be out of range, the singer. So that's a nice. The piece of evidence is that you were out of key. And the drums, yeah, that's something you can actually watch. And I wouldn't even have thought of that, to look at the drum to see if it's hitting exactly. It would be difficult to play while wet, but it has been done before during outdoor performances by many great bands. See Genesis live at the Hollywood Bowl. Now, I've got homework. Thanks, Mark. Now I've got stuff to do. Now I've got to watch Genesis live at the Hollywood Bowl. For this indoor performance, the rain only falls on the band for maybe 15 to 20 seconds. The stage behind them has rain continuing to fall, which instills the illusion of still being rained on, which persists as the band members now look wet. More so than being able to play on instruments while being rained on would be the fear of electrocution. Didn't I say that? Why do I know this? Because I played You Can't Always Get What You Want at my middle school reunion. My poor parents, oh my God, my poor parents had to come and watch this. They must have felt so bad for me. I have a picture. I'll have to find the picture. I might be wearing a tie. I remember I had a guitar. I still have it, a black, looks like a Stratocaster. It was a Guild. It was an electric Guild guitar, and I had a brown case, and there was like fur in it, and I had all the picks and all. I had to use a thing called a banana quartz tuner to tune it because I have no taking the headphones off. I have no musical ability. I shouldn't have been playing. So the fear of electrocution. Water in the electric instruments could be dangerous. Drums, voice, and piano may not have much to worry about, but the bassists and the guitar players would. I'd guess they were all using wireless connections, which would prevent being electrocuted. That would have been interesting if somebody got electrocuted at the Grammys because they just wanted to have rain. because that would mean no direct wire connection between human and amps would exist, so there wouldn't be electrocution. A bit of a splashy stunt. Oh, now he's a wordist. Visually interesting, but challenging. Watch the guitar player wipe the water out of his eyes late in the song, which is after the water has stopped falling on the band. Oh, that's a good clue, too. Yeah, it's because it still looks like it's raining, but I guess it's behind them. Boy, Mark knows everything. But there's still rain behind them. I suspect the acoustic guitarist was playing along, and there was some tracking, hard to tell with the bass. So to answer, probably a bit of live and bit of pre-record. But the true mensch performer, Mark Mann says, I pity the stagehands that had to deal with all that water, wet gear, stage wiped down for the next performers. Yeah, I know. Oh, wow. So, and anyway, thank you, Mark. And I'll see you Saturday night at the Ice House. Pasadena, California, June 22nd. You gotta look at this thing. Where's this picture? This is unbelievable. Look at look at this. This thing. This is the first digital camera. Look at this. This is younger than me. This thing, I've gotten more relevant as I've gotten older. This is unbelievable. I'll describe it. It looks like, I don't know, like 2 stories of transformers and weird computer type things fully exposed in a metal box. On top of it, a blue metal box with a camera lens, and on the side is taped taped is a tape. A tape is taped. A tape. Like you record on. This is from 1975, I believe. This is the guy who invented, look at this guy. Do you ever, this guy's such a nerd. Looks like he's taking the first selfie. Look at him. This guy, let me find this other picture too, just so I can really in my head. Boy, look at him. Look at him. So the first digital camera recorded the image onto a tape. You know, like not a CD, but a tape. Why am I blanking on what they're called? Audio cassette. Yes. And then they had to transfer it digitally onto a screen of like a TV. And so you see the TV behind him. But this is fascinating because I was looking, I was wondering, you use these digital cameras every single day. Do you ever wonder what the history is behind them? Right? Like, what is it all about? Well, this guy, and I'd love to, Steve Sasson, Sasson, Steve Sasson, the first digital camera. I'm quoting from the New York Times, an article by James Estrin, August 12, 2015. The camera alone, he says, was a historic accomplishment, but he needed to invent a playback system that would take the digital information on the cassette, that's what I was thinking of, cassette tape, and turn it into something that you could see on a television set, a digital image. This was more than just a camera, said Mr. Sasson, who was born and raised in Brooklyn. It was a photographic system to demonstrate the idea of an all-electronic camera that didn't use film, didn't use paper, and no consumables at all in capturing the display of still photographic images. The camera and the playback system were the beginning of the digital photography era, but the digital revolution did not come easily at Kodak. Okay? When they took this thing I'm looking at, this atrocity, the first digital camera, that Steve invented, it only took 50 milliseconds to capture the image, but 23 seconds to record it to the tape. Then they'd pop out the cassette tape, hand it to his assistant, and then they put it in the playback unit, and it would take 30 seconds for a 100 by 100 pixel image, which was black and white, to appear on the TV. And then I also found, though the quality was poor, Mr. Sasson told them that the resolution would improve rapidly as technology advanced, and that it could compete in the consumer market with the 35 millimeter film. And it did. He said it was going to take 20 years, and it took 18 years. So this guy was very smart. And here's the thing. And again, it's all about corporations, and corporations make decisions based on timelines. So none of these executives at Kodak thought, well, we're not going to be here in 20 years. What do we care about this camera? So they disregarded this entire thing. In fact, Kodak owns the patents to every digital image that you see. In fact, what I'm capturing right now is under a patent that Kodak had. They made billions of dollars just on the patent, but they could have been the first. But why? Why didn't Kodak want the digital camera? And it's interesting. I don't know if it's funny, but think about it. If you wanted to capture an image in the 70s or 80s, you probably had a Kodak camera. You probably used Kodak film. You probably used Kodak, sent it to a Kodak lab, and it was put on Kodak paper. And you always wanted Kodak paper. You didn't want the Fuji paper. You wanted Kodak paper. So Kodak owned the market every step of the way. The equipment, the developing, they owned it. Why would they want to invent a camera that 2/3 of those steps are gone, right? The developing, the paper, they would just be selling cameras at this point. So they didn't want this to happen. But there were other people developing the exact same technology at the same time. So in 1989, so the first digital camera was patented. Why can't I say that word? Patented in 1978. It was called the electronic still camera. But Mr. Cesson was not allowed to publicly talk about it or show his prototype to anyone outside of Kodak. In 1989, okay, the Celtics had won 3 championships in my lifetime at this point. Mr. Cesson and his colleague, Robert Hills, created the first modern digital single-lens reflexive SLR camera. We still have those today that looks and functions like today's professional models, which is what I'm shooting this on, okay? It had 1.2 megapixel sensor, and it used image compression and memory cards. It's exactly what I'm using now, just a, not as advanced camera. Anyway, the marketing department at Kodak wasn't interested in it. And every digital camera that was sold, this is what Kodak thought, took away from the film camera, and we knew how much money that was. Okay, but here's the thing. Kodak went bankrupt because they missed the entire digital parade, which I've almost missed too. I was late for the show. I missed the trends. I missed investing in NVIDIA. I missed... I should have been putting up clips of my specials I should have been doing during COVID. I'm always late to the digital party. But Kodak went out of business because nobody uses film anymore. There aren't even film developing labs. So the lesson is, you always have to be looking forward. You can't be one of these stuck-up, stupid old people. That's what I respected about Gary Shandling. Gary Shandling, comedian, mentor, always had young people around that sort of were explaining the landscape to him. What's going on now? Like, you can't be so stubborn. Like, I'll be honest. I should have aged out by now in stand-up comedy. Most of the people now are younger than me. They know the digital game better than me. They're probably more in touch with topics that are funnier to the younger comedy-consuming audience. I should have aged out. By the way, there's a nice piece of art behind me that a fan sent me. I don't want to give her full name, but I'll give her first name. Josie B. You can look, I think it's on public record on X, contacted me on X and said, hey, I made you this piece of multimedia art. I mean, it's gorgeous. What's wrong with Onie Adams? It's got my big yellow Shasta. It's got my Snoopy there. It's beautiful. I have it on display. This is my new temporary art exhibit. So it's here now. Maybe next episode I have another piece of art. Who knows? But I love it. I thought it was a cheese board. And she scolded me. She said, no, it's not for cheese. But I might use it for cheese because it's my multimedia art. But I love it. And I love when people come to my shows and bring me gifts. And you guys are great. So thank you for the people that haven't considered me aged out. But when I go up on stage like last night, I feel so connected. I don't feel my age. And I wish you could see it. And maybe it's fear I don't want to do another comedy special. I mean, I am going to do one. First of all, here's some of the reasons I'm not doing it. First of all, I have no distribution set up. I have no reps that I'm working with. I would have to self-fund it and put it up on YouTube, which isn't a bad option because my current specials have been seen millions of times and they're drawing an audience and people coming to my shows. People recognize me out in public. So I get that benefit to it. I would have to self-fund it, which I don't care. I don't mind investing in myself. And also, the people that subscribe to my Patreon, the people that come to my shows and buy products, and the people that, are very generous in my career, you're contributing to the next phase of how I distribute my stand-up comedy. Anyway, so here's what's interesting. That there's a patent attached to every one of these images that you're looking at right now. Every time you take a selfie or you take a picture with your camera, there's a patent behind that. So what happened when Kodak went out of business because they were too slow and they couldn't foresee the future? They didn't see the train a-coming, the digital train a-coming. A group of tech heavyweights, including Apple, Google, and Facebook, have joined forces, or did, to purchase approximately 1,100 digital imaging and processing patents from Eastman Kodak for $525 million. This is in 2012. Intellectual Ventures and RPX organized a consortium of 12 tech companies: Adobe, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Fujifilm, Google, HTC, Huawei, Microsoft, RIM, Samsung, and Shutterfly to make the purchase. Each company will split the $525 million. The portfolio was said to be worth about $2.5 billion, but Kodak settled for $525 million, partially because Kodak was bankrupt and not in a position to negotiate. But it is also because Kodak extensively licensed these patents to other companies. So other companies already had licenses to the patent. But it says Kodak earned $3 billion from those patents. $3 billion from the patent, from the invention that Steve Sasson came up with. And guess how much of that $3 billion Steve Sasson got? Zippo, zero, big zinger, because he worked for Kodak. In fact, he's living in a hut with the lead singer from Fun. Boy, life isn't fair. Do you think Kodak could have given him like here's 10 million, 100 million, something? Something? That's the thing, young people, if you're listening. When you work for another company or a corporation or somebody like that, you are signing away every invention you come up with or every thought they own, the company owns. Seems antiquated. Hopefully that will change at some point. Here is, you got to see this picture. He invented the first digital camera. The first digital image in 1957, Kirsch and his team achieved a major milestone by creating the first digital image. A simple 176 by 176 pixel photograph of Kirsch's 3-month-old son, Walden. You gotta see this picture. Holy cow! It's like Children of the Corn. I know the kids are only 3, but whoa! They should have given up on digital photography. If this was the first image, this is the first digital image. I'd love to know where this kid is now. 1957, which means he's close to 70, right? 65, 70? Whose math is good? Let's see. 57, 67, 77, 87, 97, 2007, 17. Oh, I think we're at 67 years old. That's my guess, but you got to see that picture. Maron. Interestingly, the image was stored in a rudimentary format using a binary code. Geek talk. Binary code. Pixels. The process of creating the first digital image involved scanning a physical photograph. Cheating! Not what Sasan did with a drum scanner, which converted the analog image into a digital format. Well, there you go. Hey, before I wrap this up, I want to thank everybody that listens to this podcast, that shares this podcast. What is it called, the podcast? That subscribes, likes, all the comments. You know, if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify and you want to write a nice review, I appreciate it. Somebody came up to me at the Comedy Store last night and said, I'm a huge fan of your podcast. Nothing about my stand-up. I go, that's interesting, but I'll take it. It's interesting. So cool. So very cool. But I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Eric Stoltz, not the actor Eric Stoltz, but Eric Stoltz, who is out of town, but will still be mastering this audio. Like the genius that he is. And by the way, Eric Stoltz worked on all three of my specials. In fact, he produced two of them. My first one, which was done at the Ice House, which was called Path of Most Resistance, which is my entire life has been a path of most resistance. And then we did Takes the Third and then More Than Loud. And hopefully Eric will be involved with the fourth one and the fifth one. And then I'm going to bed. Thank you. How good are your olfactory senses? Anybody? That's the other thing that's interesting about podcasting now and comedy and just everything. Like everybody has to have a podcast and everybody has to be, know-it-alls. We have to be experts on everything. Everybody's a polymath, you know? Everybody has to know everything. How good is your olfactory senses? There was a great article, and I encourage everybody to read this because I think it's fascinating. And what it doesn't involve is technology. So, you know, some medicines, even to this day, rely on smell to sniff out disease. And it's not really credited. But there was this woman, and I believe she was in Scotland, and her husband, 20 years ago, started to get irritable, and his sex drive wasn't the same. And, you know, there were so many things happening to him. And she also noticed that he smelled different. And now this woman, Joy, I think her name was Joy in the article, always had this like nose that she inherited from her mother's side of the family that like had extra, like she was extra dialed in to that part of the brain. And she could smell things that nobody else ever could smell. And she noticed that he smelled differently. And years later, he was diagnosed with having Parkinson's. And at the same time, she's working in a hospital, and she notices that the people who have Parkinson's smell just like her husband. But the thing is that she noticed this smell years before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So she went to like the foremost doctors out there and said, hey, listen, I can smell Parkinson's. And they said, no, you can't. You're crazy. And she said, yeah. So they tested her. They gave her 10 samples, 5 people that had Parkinson's, 5 people that didn't. They had them wear a t-shirt, a clean t-shirt for 24 hours. And then they cut the t-shirt in half and they put it in a bag and she smelled it. And 5 of them had Parkinson's and 5 didn't. Well, she got all 5 of those right. But she also said that one of the people that didn't have Parkinson's, she misdiagnosed and said, that smells like Parkinson's. But the other thing is, then she'd smell the other half of the t-shirts, and she matched which half went with which half. Like, it's crazy. Do you understand? She could tell this half of shirt had the smell that went with this half of the shirt that had a smell. And so they sort of discounted it and said, all right, listen, she got the 5, but this isn't very good if she's misdiagnosing people. And we'll just train dogs to sniff or whatever this is eventually. And so it's sort of stalled. And then I guess sometime later, that 6th person developed Parkinson's. So now they're taking her seriously. So this woman can smell Parkinson's. But the problem is that we can't just have her, she's a one person all over the world sniffing people. That would be a horrible life. Because the smell comes from the armpits or the neck. And they couldn't figure out what was secreting from the body. And they figured out that it was sebum, S-E-B-U-M, sebum secretion. And nobody, this is like a secretion like sweat or blood. Like, this is something that comes out of her body that isn't really studied or taken seriously, much like she wasn't. And so what they did was they took the sebum and then they ran it through all like this, this thing that broke down all the 200 components of it, and they had her smell and they narrowed it down, and now they kind of know what Parkinson smells like, and they'll be able to digitally now detect for the smell. It's just, I just think it's interesting. I just wanted to call people's attention to it. I know there's nothing funny about it, but I think it's fascinating, and that she was so persistent, and that this one woman's going to change the world, much like, Sasson. And by the way, that camera is now in the Smithsonian. I think Obama had it put into the Smithsonian, the first digital camera, the one from 1975, which looks like it's from 350 years ago, and yet it's younger than me, which is depressing, which is really, really depressing. Oh, now they're having this Joy woman, Tanzania. They've sent her to Tanzania testing for tuberculosis. A disease that normally they would use rats to smell out. It's crazy. But here's the other thing that's interesting. I have a friend. She said, she described Parkinson's smelling like sour milk. And I have a friend that has Parkinson's. And he got in my car once and smelled like sour milk. And this was before he told me, or he actually never told me. I found out through somebody else that he has Parkinson's, which I smelled. I smelled the sour milk. It's weird what diseases smell like. Sour milk. What diseases smell like? Rotten eggs. Yeah, if anybody smells funky, sometimes it just means something's going on. Something is not, it's not right. Yeah, well, it's been a wonderful episode. I should tell you what happened to me at Target. I went to Target, and I noticed that the self-checkout line, I've long suspected everybody's stealing from self-checkout, and that they're going to catch on to this eventually. And now they've got cameras, and then sometimes if you don't ring it in, it says the weight is wrong and all this sort of stuff. So, and I know I do jokes about this. I've been talking about this on stage too. But so I go to Target, and the self-checkout line is around the block. And I'm like, I don't have time to wait for that. So I go over to full service, it's empty. And I'm looking around going, well, why? I'm looking at the self-checkout people. Why aren't you going over here? So I put all my stuff on the belt. And the lady, I said to her, why is everybody in self-checkout? Nobody wants to use full service? It's empty. And she goes, you know why? I go, why? She goes, I go, everybody's stealing, right? She goes, yeah. I said, and you guys know it? She goes, yeah. I said, are you guys doing anything about it? She goes, no. I took everything off that belt, put it in my cart. I went right over to self-checkout. And guess what? I saved $28 that night by using self-checkout. Sick of self-checkout. I don't want to do your job. I'm sick of self-checkout. I'm sick of crime. And I'm sick of not having sold out shows. Sick of everything. KYTTY. Keep your thoughts to yourself, everybody. Unless they're nice. I like nice ones. A majority of the comments are really nice. Some people are out of touch. But anyway, listen, thank you for listening to What's Wrong with Onie Adams. Again, thank you, Eric Stoltz, for mastering the audio. And thank you for everything. It's wonderful. I have a new air conditioning unit here in Big Yellow. I installed myself proudly, and it cooled the place down. Today's the first day I've used it. But you can't keep it running when the podcast is going. Want to hear what it sounds like? I'll bring this music down. Watch this. Do you hear that? Hold on. Is it on? Oh, there we go. Listen. Yeah. At what point do they come up with an air conditioner that doesn't sound so loud? Figure it out. And I don't want to have like the unit outside. Don't run and go, oh, have the unit outside. Have it fun. What about that? Everybody's got a solution. There's no answers. There's no answers. Keep your opinions to yourself. KYTTY. Look for that t-shirt for sale after my shows. I say everything with a smile. Thanks, everybody. And I'll see you for episode 118, What's Wrong with Onie Adams.